Good morning, Morgan, and good morning to any of Morgan's friends that have tuned in for this video. Today, we're going to be talking about the list object again, excuse me. Sorry. And how you can use it as a cue. And we're doing this because that's the next section in the manual. Okay? Now, before we go to read the manual, I want to talk to you about something. Okay? So, in this from statement, what we're doing is we're importing a object from a library, Python library called collections. Okay, and what it is it's like it's a version of a list, but it's been modified a little bit. Okay, so that means it's also importing the methods that will use that object. Okay, and we're using here it like a queue. Okay, and we're going to talk about that later. And but I also want to show you that we really don't need to do that. We could do the same thing using a regular list like we did before, but I'm going to explain at the end why they want you to use this one. Okay, and with that, let's go over to the manual and read what the manual has to say. And here we are in the manual. We just got a little bit of reading and this example, and then we'll get back to the code. All right, so let's go ahead and do some reading.
Python Training Video 17. 5.1.2 Using lists as cues. It is also possible to use a list as a cue, where the first element added is the first element retrieved, first in, first out. However, lists are not efficient for this purpose. While appends and pops from the end of list are fast, doing inserts or pops from the beginning of a list is slow, because all of the other elements have to be shifted by one. To implement a queue, use collections.deque, which was designed to have fast appends and pops from both ends. For example, from collections import deque.
All right, so what are they saying here since they're speaking technicalese? What they're saying is that if you're writing a program that's going to go into production and speed is essential, you want to use this different object, this whatever they call it, this deque object instead of a list object, because it runs faster. The computer doesn't have to work as hard to modify the data. Okay, and I know you're asking, why didn't they do that from the beginning? I don't know. All I know is that when it comes to production and speed, they needed to speed things up a little bit. So somebody went like, hey man, let's go ahead and supercharge this list object so that's a little more efficient. And so there you go. That's probably what happened. Anyway, let's go over to the code, and I want to show you that you can do it both ways, what they're trying to do both ways. Okay, with that, let's go back to the code. All right, I decided to skip the part where I go back to the code and just do a little chit-chatting and then run the code and then show you the output. Okay, because that might be a little unnecessary. All right, so we've run the program. It didn't explode. And now I want to take a look at this code up here. All right, in the example that uses the decode object, okay, we're taking the decode object that we loaded with the whatever command, I forget what it is, the insert command or whatever. Anyway, so, and then we're putting it into queue. So queue is not a list object, it's a deque object. It's a little different. It's the same, but it's not the same. Okay, so this append method that we're using to access the deque object is not the same append that we're using for the list. Okay? But it functions, does the same function. Okay? So what they've done here is they're, if you remember in the example from yesterday, that we would add stuff to the end and then they would drop it off at the end. But we don't want to do that because we're using it a queue. So we want to like, hey, get to the back of the line and then we're going to take somebody from the front of the line. Okay? So here we go. We start off with Eric, John, and Michael. Okay, then we put Terry at the end behind Michael, and then we put Graham behind Terry. Then we start letting people, ride the ride. Okay, so Eric's gone to ride the ride. John's gone off to ride the ride because the second one goes. So that means Michael's in the front of the line. So we go and we print what's in the queue, and sure enough, that's the list. All right, now, here we're creating the regular list object. We're calling it Q2, doing the old-fashioned way of creating the code. Okay. By the way, I dropped the double quotes here in the display because it was causing problems with my print. But there should be some quotes in here so that the machine knows that this is a string data. Okay. And now this append is not the same as this append, but they're a little different. Okay. Here we're doing the same thing. Boom, Terry. Boom, Graham. Right. And then look what we're doing. We're using the same old pop that we did from yesterday, but now we're saying go to the front. If you didn't put the 0 there, it would take him off the back. Do you understand? And you can also, if you wanted to, you could pluck people out of the middle of the line if you wanted to. If you put like put a 1 in here, put 1s in here instead, they would have skipped over Michael and would have skipped over Eric and taken John and then Michael. Do you understand? Anyway, I hope you do. And that should just about cover it for today. All right, Princess? So go find your one-wheeler or maybe go ride your horse to have some fun while you're young. And with that, I'll see you at the next video.